The gravity of the time is such that every new avenue of peace, no matter how dimly discernible, should be explored. Never before in history has so much hope for so many people been gathered together in a single organization. You will provide a great share of the wisdom, of the courage, and the faith which can bring to this world lasting peace for all nations and happiness and well-being for all men.
Hello, everybody, to the Titans of Nuclear show. I'm very happy to have three brilliant people with me who are working on a nuclear campaign and are based in the UK, but actually working on the tasks that will benefit all the nuclear community globally. We have Arun Khuttan, the engineer of Magnots Limited, with us. Also Sophie Zienkiewicz, the business insight advisor at the National Nuclear Laboratory, and Neil Calder, senior consultant at Hydrock. Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. So today we are not going to talk about your professional career, but about the things that you are doing in your free time. More precisely, I'm talking about the Net Zero Needs Nuclear campaign that is preparing the nuclear community for the COP conference. And I guess also the COP conference for the nuclear, to receive the nuclear community. This topic is very important for me as well, as I had the chance to participate in two conferences of COP myself and do some advocacy work there. So question number one would be to state the basics. What is COP, and is there anything special about the COP26 that is going to happen this year?
Yeah, absolutely. I can cover a little bit of the intro of COP and some of the history. And there is a lot of history to COP, everything from World Environment Day in the 70s, all the way through to like the early 90s when these COPs were initially set up. So yeah, it's set up by the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, the UNFCCC, a nice big acronym to get us started. And yeah, they've brought together so many countries to make agreements and to agree a way forward on climate change. So it really is something quite spectacular, and we're coming up to the 26th COP, which is quite unbelievable when you say that we've recognized the issues around climate change for at least 26 years. So yeah, we know that COP25 happened a couple of years ago now in Madrid, and that was originally moved from Chile. So a lot of last minute things going on, a lot of talks going on, but unfortunately it didn't quite deliver on what we wanted from a climate perspective, nationally determined contributions, NDCs they're called, and a lot of government agreements, unfortunately. So that puts even more pressure onto this next COP being hosted in Glasgow this year in November, and a real opportunity to make positive change and get talks going in a positive direction. And it's 5 years on since it's going to be the fifth COP after COP21 in Paris, where we know that the really landmark agreements took place, limiting global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius. So this is the kind of next big phase and milestone where we can assess how we're doing. And unfortunately, nuclear hasn't always had a big role at COP. And so, for example, I think maybe 20 to 30 representatives from the nuclear arena attend out of 30,000 people attending. And this tiny little fraction are talking about nuclear. So we're really keen to get that nuclear voice up, and yeah, hopefully we can talk to you more about how we're planning to do that. So that's hopefully a little intro, and yeah, we can get into the meat of it.
Thanks a lot for this answer, Arun. So what is actually the Net Zero Needs Nuclear campaign? Who is behind this campaign, first of all?
Yeah, I can pick up on that. So this is something that we as a team, COP26 delivery team representing the Nuclear Institute YGN. So we started this back in February of this year, 2021. And really, we thought it was vital to generate momentum ahead of COP26. So we got together and we set out some objectives for this net zero nuclear campaign, where we really wanted to get the discussion going, basically, to raise awareness and gather support, to raise awareness of the critical role that nuclear will play in net zero. And fundamentally, what we wanted to do is to really make an impact and influence not just individuals, but the policymakers, the international decision makers. So we launched this campaign, and we founded it upon kind of two main components. So first of all, we thought we had to kind of provide an actual justification for what we're saying about net zero needs nuclear. So we set out to develop a position paper which basically breaks down scientifically why net zero needs nuclear. And also this acts as like something tangible that we can present to policymakers with our fundamental ask, both at the event and at COP26, and also in the kind of build up during this campaign. So we had the position paper, which we actually, I should say, we developed that alongside Nuclear for Climate, who, if you're not aware already, is it's like a grassroots initiative which represents over 150 organizations and they have done position papers in the past for previous COPs, as I'm sure you're aware. So it was in collaboration with Nuclear for Climate. And then on the other hand, you've got the position paper on one side, and we thought it was critical also to have what we call a call to action or a petition. And that was just a way of really kind of gathering momentum, being able to kind of call to action to people, mobilize the masses, and be able to show like an actual tangible number of people that are supporting our cause and our campaign. That way we could really kind of generate some more impact when we're going to these policymakers at COP26 and beyond. So that's the kind of two main components. And I guess I should probably touch on, they're both centered around a kind of key ask that we have, and I can read that out. So the ask at the center of the position paper and the petition is, we're calling on all negotiators and policymakers who are involved at COP26 to take a scientific and technology neutral approach to energy policy and financing that can promote sustainable collaboration between nuclear and renewables. So really what we're getting at there fundamentally is we want nuclear to be recognized as a sustainable energy source. We're ultimately calling for like the framework that allows all clean energy technologies to collaborate and give equal footing to these technologies, and really kind of drive forward that high level policy and finance that can allow that to happen, and that follows science and not a kind of ideological way of thinking. So that's really fundamentally what our campaign is centered around, but we've got a load of other supporting activities, which we can go on to explain as well.
It's very interesting what you're saying about the position paper, and I agree with this totally, that the problem with nuclear at COP is that we never ask for like special privileges. We just want that this source of energy is treated equally as it deserves, while this never took place by now. And I can say from my perspective as a former participant of COP, people are just surprised to see us there. They do not see any relation between us and the objectives of COP.
Yeah, I think that's critical to not just the campaign, but everything we do in the industry, is just to raise that awareness and get people talking, the public, and obviously the people that are that have the ability to make the international decisions, and national decisions, but just the public to be aware that nuclear is a clean energy technology. Mm-hmm. You know, that's like stage one.
Mm-hmm.
And just to jump in, if that's okay, really quickly, I think that kind of neutrality approach is so important, and a lot of people will be very pro renewables or pro a specific energy type, and we're just trying to level that playing field, I think. And people will say they have an inclusive approach, but we really want to put that into practice and see that in action, because they'll say they'll have an inclusive approach but then not mention nuclear. Yeah. So we want to help to translate that.
Great. And one last question here: the campaign is targeted mostly for the general public, mostly for the industry, or for everybody who's able to reach us?
Yeah, so I mean, it's basically when we set about with the campaign, it was targeted at everyone really, is to try and gather that general awareness. One thing we're key to include in the message is that it's not our campaign. It's not a campaign that we're driving it, but we want people to take it on board themselves and make it their own. It's all based around the hashtag Net Zero and Use Nuclear. So it's just getting that collective message really. Within the industry, obviously we're going to get more immediate traction, but we want it to go wider than that. We want the general public to pick it up and really get that momentum going.
Cool. And from what I know, also you took as one of the objectives to reach out outside of our nuclear bubble and to get in contact with other groups, other organizations that are planning to come to COP, and have some response from them, possibly a collaboration. What was their response? How did they react to this kind of opportunity that you proposed to them?
Yeah, so we've set out basically, like you say, we've got a kind of strategy of how we're contacting NGOs and civil societies, because one thing that I think a lot of people aren't aware is that at COP, at least maybe within our industry, COP's not just about energy production. That's actually like a relatively small piece of the pie. When you're looking at everything, you've got representation from across all industries, and not even just industries. You've got indigenous peoples, you've got gender groups, and that we've got parallels with a lot of these groups as well. So it's contacting these wider groups and making that first initial contact, engaging the discussion. So we're at a relatively early stage in that respect with contacting these wider groups. We focused initially on looking at these NGOs and civil societies that are either pro-nuclear or like sustainable energy based. So we've made initial contact with them, including a lot of other clean energy technologies. So various renewables groups and other clean energy technology groups, and we've had quite a mixed response. I think the key is obviously you need to kind of tailor your messaging and how you communicate and what you're communicating depending on the group, obviously. So it's been an interesting process, but I think we have had quite a fair level of engagement with some wider industry groups, which we can go on to explain with some collaborative events in the build-up. But with regards to collaborating at COP26, there's obviously been this kind of uncertainty over the past several months and beyond, given the COVID situation and how COP was going to look. So it's quite difficult to gauge who's going to be going to the event and who's going to be able to travel. But it's definitely something that we've planned a strategy for. And once we get the kind of green light of how it's going to look and who's all going to be there, then we're going to really push to communicate with these wider groups.
Great.
We've been doing a lot actually, in terms of considering the people that we want to reach out to, because we know that there are so many enthusiastic groups, organizations, individuals. And actually, it's the volunteer base that is really driving this campaign for us. They have been absolutely incredible. We've reached out to different people like obviously the YGN network, the Young Generation series of volunteers. We've also got the Friends of Nuclear Energy that we're doing a lot of partnership work with. But then people that Neil was mentioning outside of the sector. So the Young Energy Professional, the YEP group, that we're doing a couple of webinars with. The response to that sort of thing has just been really overwhelming, actually. And it's quite humbling to work on a campaign where people go, actually, yeah, I really do want to be a part of that. It's really quite exciting because it drives you forwards. And I think for me, the biggest learning over the past couple of months since we started in September 2020 has just been the amount of people that say yes. And they go, actually, I'm prepared to listen. And I think I've personally been really quite humbled and surprised about that. And that kind of volunteer base is what really drives us.
Great. From what I see here 3 young professionals. Probably you're like around 30, like me. So it makes me think, like, does the age play a big role in this? Did you decide to only accept young people because of something, or is there any other reason why these are young professionals who are driving this campaign of awareness about COP?
Yeah, good question. I think so. In terms of the delivery team, there's 9 of us, and we do tend to fall into that younger age range category. And we're an international team as well. I think that's important to highlight. So, like we were talking about at the beginning, this is very much a global campaign. But specifically, I think the strengths of this has been that sort of injection of energy and passion and enthusiasm, because we actually feel quite liberated by what we're able to do with this. I think traditionally the sector has been quite nervous about talking out and speaking out and actually taking a stand on something. And we've kind of come along, and as this group have actually said, well, no, we don't think that's right. We do want to have opinions, and we do think that our collaborative approach has really kind of step changed how people view us. We've had some really great responses. And I think part of that as well, maybe the others would agree, but is that we've taken so much pride in having an opinion and making a stand for it. And I think that's something that's quite different and hasn't had necessarily happened in the past. So although we are collectively a younger group of people, and that does set us apart, and it kind of opens a couple of doors, which has always been quite handy to us, I don't think it's exclusive, because we want this, our biggest message is collaboration. So although it's helpful, I think that's the key message that we want to take away. We want to work with anyone and everyone, really.
Yeah, so I imagine that more experienced professionals and people who are working for a longer time for this kind of campaigns or projects are probably still pretty supportive. And even though they don't do the hands-on work as you do, they can still share their experience. Is that right?
Oh, that's so true. Yes. Oh, completely. And we've had so many great conversations with so many different kind of sponsors, and the information that we've learned and the experiences just over the past couple of months, the people that we've been able to chat to has just been absolutely inspiring. And I think that's another key message that we're keen to really push for, is that there is such a wealth of knowledge in the sector, and if we are able to kind of act outside of the normal sphere of nuclear influence and kind of project people's messages that they might not feel comfortable doing, that they might not be able to, then that's what we really, I think that's our USP in a way, that we're able to do that in a slightly different way to normal. So yeah, the experience of the sector is unparalleled and incredibly inspiring, and to kind of funnel those messages through a slightly different lens is really powerful.
Great. From what I see, this campaign sounds like a lot of work. I am really impressed by like how many different tasks you're doing, how many different groups you're reaching out to, and how many people you actually represent. Like, this is the whole nuclear community. And so I'm wondering, like, your colleagues are focused on their professional job only. They are thinking about like making career, getting promoted and so on. Like, what is your motivation of getting involved in such an absorbing project? There must be some reason to it.
Yeah, it's a really good question. Like, where does our motivation come from to do this? And it is all voluntary on top of our day jobs. I mean, for me personally, I kind of, my parents are from India, and I've seen the energy poverty that they kind of grew up in. When I've gone back and visited, I've kind of experienced almost, not quite firsthand, but I've definitely seen it. I've been up front, been in these villages that my parents grew up in, and over the like years of my childhood, when I would visit, I could see them going from like having no sanitation, like very poor services, no electricity, and all this kind of growth in the space of a few years that went from almost nothing to like having fridges and motorbikes and kind of fans and an incredibly hot country that drastically improves your quality of life. Like, I think we really take for granted how much of an effect that has, not just on your quality of life, but your chances of survival and like mortality. And I think we sometimes talk about climate change as this huge thing, but really global development and clean global development is so important. And that's one thing that kind of, it's driven me a lot. And from my early uni days, I was walking around with my wind turbine t-shirt and thinking that I'd be spending my years designing wind turbines and maximizing their output. But I learned about nuclear energy and I was like, we need to be doing this. Why aren't we throwing everything at this? Because this solves the abundance problem and the clean problem. You get that global development, and really you can start to see some of the impacts it has in developing countries. And I sometimes think I'm not spending enough time on this because the impacts and the outputs are so potentially huge that I find anybody who's not spending time on this crazy now, because like once you really get into it and you learn about it, you're like, why is everybody not focused on this and doing everything they can to make it happen?
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think the best part about this group and the reason why we gel so much and why we're trying to reach out and enthuse so many more people is that we're all fundamentally environmentalists first. And we all believe to our core that saving the planet, or being a part of saving the planet, because no one person's going to do it. The point is that we need to do it together. But being a part of that and being this environmentalist first and understanding that nuclear energy is one of the solutions to that is what drives us forwards. And I think that kind of fundamental of environmentalism, sustainability, eco-consciousness, that's what binds us all together as a group. And I think that's probably why I got involved. But the reasons, apart from those, as to why I stay is the people that are involved in this and the interactions that we've had. And like Aaron was saying, everyone we talk to kind of goes, oh my goodness, you guys actually really believe this, don't you? And I think they're always surprised because they think, oh, well, you know, it's their day job, it's just an extension. But actually, when you talk to us and we talk to other people, you really get that sense of enthusiasm and that it's something greater than ourselves and that we're all working to this higher mission. And it sounds a bit, I don't know, maybe it sounds a bit preachy, but I think we all really, really believe that. And so to be able to engage with people and bring them on our journey to whatever degree, that's incredibly powerful. And I think that's probably the reason why I stay.
That's great.
I think there's an extra bit there around like, yeah, we're all kind of relatively young. We're part of the Young Generation Network, and we've seen over the last few years like these groups coming out like Fridays for Future and Extinction Rebellion, and there is a large youth movement from there that are stating the problems that we need to take action. And unfortunately, I think that they've almost stalled and they're stuck on this take action and change society bit. But we really want to push the conversation to the next step. Like, how do we begin to create change, and what do we do exactly, and trying to make progress, like solution-driven progress. And I think as a youth group, we can really bring that to the table. We are passionate about what we want to do, but we're also kind of we've studied and work in this industry, in this incredible industry that provides a lot of these solutions, and we just need to get that message out there.
Yeah, that's very important. When you're talking about the Fridays for Future and all these recent events, I think the problem is that even though people believing in nuclear energy and understanding that this is the future, they don't see their representation in there. I mean, me personally, I tried to represent nuclear once in such a march, and I got kicked out, really with like police and stuff. So, but I already have my community around me. Like, it does not make me doubt in what I believe. But I imagine that for many people, they really need this having this like community around them to kind of be able to like believe together in this solution. And you are creating this, and I think that the more we are pushing on having this representation of young people who are having these ideas and sharing them together, this will actually help our colleagues, people who somehow secretly also understand our beliefs, to be a little bit encouraged to get engaged as well.
I love that, and I completely agree with you. I'm really new to the sector, maybe 2-3 years, so quite fresh.
Oh, yeah.
I think the biggest observation that I would probably make is around the fact that you've got so many enthusiastic people within it, but for some reason we haven't flipped the mirror and we haven't gone, okay, we're ready for your world, kind of come at us, let's show you what we've got. And I think that's really been missing. I'd really recommend watching a talk, I imagine it's on YouTube, a YGN speaking competition talk given by Alan Simpson. And it's all around humanizing nuclear and involving the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs, and how we can, or how we need to be, it's not even a can, it's how we need to be showing up for the world, and we need to be standing for something greater, and actually contributing and working together, reaching outside of our sector, pushing ourselves, because again, just an observation, but it is quite, and then maybe this it's not a necessarily controversial statement, but it is quite insular. We do all talk to each other a lot more than we do talk to the outside world, and that's not everyone, and it is changing. But I think that's a real asset of this campaign, is that we're uniting around COP. There's a greater message there that everyone can get behind, and taking steps to get involved and campaigns. So a lot of social media elements on our website, the Net Zero Needs Nuclear website, and we're really asking people to go out and own that campaign for themselves and for their organizations and their industries. I think one of our biggest dreams would be to have a renewables organization with their own social media frames and their hashtags, and just showing us that they want us to be there, I think, because we want to be there. We just need to convince others.
Yeah, because in the end, we should have the same objective, not follow our interests. So there is COP. COP is aiming at solve the problem of the climate change, or at least mitigate it as much as possible. However, many groups are focusing on pushing like their interest through, instead of really discussing about the solution that is the most optimal. So I totally agree with you that this kind of thing would be really, really amazing for the future. And about the owning of the campaign by each and every one of us, I really, really loved this idea of the posts that you can post on LinkedIn with the frame that you prepared, and being able to write a quote from a position paper, or just something that you believe in that is related to nuclear and climate. And this really has such an amazing outreach. And I could see many people who are not related to nuclear, that are my friends or I used to go to school with, they really got back on it, and they commented, they liked the post. So I'm not sure if it changed their mind, but at least they can see that there is a discussion, that this thing is somewhere on the table, and it's important. Maybe 1% of these people will really reach out to your website or to read about nuclear a little bit more. So that was a really, really great element of the campaign. And maybe this is the good moment, as we are coming to the end of the interview, to talk a little bit about the ways of engaging of each and every one of us in this campaign. How can we contribute, and how can we show our nuclear pride?
Yeah, I can pick up on that. And it's funny that you say that, because just exactly what you said, just seeing people that are discussing it, they don't necessarily need to 100% agree with the message, but it goes back to one of our objectives, which is just to get the discussion going and just have have awareness, you know. You don't necessarily need to buy into every single message, but just having that visibility. But in terms of getting involved, so Sophie's already touched on it and we've been talking about it there, the social media side of things. But everything really, if you want to find out all the details, we've got a website, which is handily www.netzeroneedsnuclear.com. And there we've got a get involved section, and that basically doesn't just list what you can do, but it has like links to all the various ways that we've set up of interacting with the campaign. So the social media side of things, you've got these frames, like you say, which are tailored for the different social media platforms. Then we've got like ideas of video posts that you can do. You know, examples of people that have given these kind of video snippets of why they think net zero needs nuclear. Similarly with like photo posts beyond the profile frames. And then another really cool thing we've got as well is like we set up a template for drafting letters to politicians. So whether you're based in the UK or you're international, we've got like a link which basically brings up a template. Then you just fill in your specific details and it fires off a letter to your local politician or to your international representative. So that's key as well, just getting that kind of, you know, message out to those politicians and those decision makers. But yeah, I'm sure there's perhaps a few other ways of getting involved that I've perhaps missed out on there. But as I said, we just want everyone to get the discussion going and yeah, build on the momentum.
Yeah, just to add to the social media thing, actually, a few of the other team members will remind me frequently that early on I was like, forget about the social media. We don't really need that. But I've been a complete convert. It has had such a big impact, and I definitely didn't appreciate how effective it can be. So, for example, we've got a few examples on the website, but when people post on LinkedIn and Twitter, the way their algorithms work, if for example, somebody likes it, their entire network will see that they've liked it. And so everybody has people in their network that aren't in nuclear. So your entire network will show up on their feed. They see this picture. It's scientifically proven that posts with a picture, colors will get more engagement. And that's what our posts are really, and they actually do really well. A lot of them getting huge amounts of likes, thousands of impressions, and even exactly what Neil said, if they don't, they're not going to kind of come over to the side immediately, but it gets them thinking about it, and we're not trying to do this overnight. This is a long conversation that will take some time, and it just gets them thinking about it really.
Yeah, completely. And just to echo those points, that idea of just getting involved and just collaborate, just reach out, talk to people, talk to your family, your friends, your boss, your colleagues, anyone. We just need to start the conversation, or maybe at least continue the conversation. And I just really want to thank every single volunteer or every single person that's come to a meeting, that has responded to our hassly emails, anything, because it's the people that are owning this campaign that are absolutely incredible. And it's them that motivates us and keeps it going.
Yeah, definitely. And I think one last thing to say as well is that obviously we've focused this all around COP26, and we're the COP26 delivery team. And this call, we're talking about COP26. But I think we've got a bigger vision as well, where we're going to carry on this campaign and spur new campaigns off the back of this that follow on from COP26 and build on hopefully what's going to be a productive COP26, so that our message can get even stronger. So we don't see the end goal being COP26. We see this pushing on and really, really impacting towards our net zero deadlines.
Great. So Neil, maybe one last question to you. If 100% of your campaign objectives manage to be fulfilled, like where will we see you, Net Zero Needs Nuclear? Where will we hear about you? Like what will you achieve with this campaign?
Oh, I guess that's kind of how high do you set the bar? But one thing, actually, obviously, when we first started meeting as a group, we set kind of actual targets on things like quantitative targets and more kind of high level targets. But one thing we talked about was getting in the media, because that really kind of, as much as social media is a massive influence, it gives you kind of credibility when you're in the media. But also we feel like getting some of those like real key influential people speaking about our campaign or the campaign, sorry. That's kind of a big step change, we feel, as well. If we can get people like Bill Gates, you know, retweeting our campaign and getting on board in our campaign, then honestly, we think the sky's the limit. So,
yeah, that would be ace. That would be so cool. I think the other angle of that is the education piece. I think it would be awesome if we could get nuclear properly represented on the agenda, on the curriculum, sorry, for all age ranges of schools, school children, because I think empowering people at that age is where we can really make some future difference.
Great. So we're waiting for Bill Gates to share our posts and for kids to have the project topics about nuclear. And I really wish you all the best, guys. And I really hope that all the objectives that you set are going to be fulfilled and people are going to hear about Net Zero Needs Nuclear all over the place in social media, in the private discussions, and finally, hopefully in TV and radio as well. Thanks a lot.
And initiate at least a new approach to the many difficult problems that must be solved in both private and public conversation if the world is to shake off the inertia imposed by fear and is to make positive progress toward peace.